Hari Om, Radhe Krishna. I would like to convey my apology for not sharing with you for 2-3 classes. Coming to the Bhagavad Gita, we completed the 7th sloka verse in the first chapter. So we completed. So Swami Ji is highlighting we have to learn what are the qualities required for being a better human being, which is highlighted in the Bhagavad Gita. What all qualities Duryodhana did not have, and that was the cause for the war. What he is highlighting is, as a Jivatma, as a Jiva, what are the qualities to required to accommodate everyone, to have that attitude, what are the qualities required to reach at the lotus feet, to know the ultimate truth. So that few points I would like to highlight what Swamiji has shared, because these qualities we should know, which Arjuna had, which Duryodhana lacked. So what will happen when we don't have these qualities? What are the conflicts come in our mind? What are the clashes come in our life? So how to be a better human being? Swamiji is highlighting on the beautiful point of accommodation. That is, how to accommodate every individual in our life. Because if we have that attitude, we can see how much transformation takes place. It's a very, very difficult, because every individual's potential varies, everything varies, but that is God's nature, that God has made each individual for us to know that how to accommodate everybody with those qualities, how we see each individual, each situation, which is a beautiful thing, which as Swamiji has highlighted, which we all should know those qualities. So the word Shanti, that is K-S-A-N-T-I, that Shanti, derives from Sanskrit, if you can understand that, derives from the Sanskrit root Shama, meaning to forgive, which is the very, very, very high quality. We think that to forgive means that we are cowards. Not like that. See, if you try to accommodate that person and make him understand and forgive, nothing more than that. So that to develop that, it's not that easy. But as we are all in the spiritual line, automatically Lord sees to it that how the situation comes, how easily we can accommodate. Everything comes to the proper place when we are in the spiritual line. That is very important. Whereas being in the material line, it's very difficult. But with these qualities will help us in the material world to face any situation. We can be a role model to the other person and show those qualities, because these qualities will help us in the material world when we are with the people, when we are in the situation. So it really helps us. So forgive. Shanti is often translated as forbearance or endurance. Two words that carry a negative connotation of resigned suffering. A more appropriate translation of Shanti is accommodation, as we have told. Shanti is defined as the capacity to accommodate another's faults or mistakes. It is the capacity to accept in others undesirable behavior that one cannot change. It means not demanding others to change in order to please oneself. So what is highlighting, Swamiji is telling, we should be dharmic. So we should not keep quiet. We should always, in a nice way, make the person understand. That calmness, only with a calm mind, it will help us to understand and make the other person understand. So calmness is, as I already told, is very important. One cannot avoid interacting with others. Individuals differ in attitudes, behavior, expectations and qualities. One will always find in others qualities and behaviors that are desirable as well as undesirable. Moreover, one's own likes and dislikes do not remain constant. As they change, what one finds desirable and and undesirable in others will also change. More often than not, one expects others to change their behavior or thinking so that one can relate to them more easily. But others have similar expectation. Hence, Swamiji is referring that relationships in which one expects the other person to change to suit oneself inevitably lead to frustrations and conflicts. It's a very important point Swamiji is highlighting. Acceptance. So one is like that when other one can always accept the situation, because then only we can go spiritually. Otherwise we are the same cadre of the other person. We don't know the other person how much he has grown. That Lord will take care. It's not our problem. But then we can make him understand. See, likes and dislikes vary from person. What is dharmic, what is proper, those likes and dislikes only it's said here. What is told in the Shastras. So then only we can grow spiritually. Otherwise, with our own whims and fancies, likes and dislikes, we try to do it, then we are like any other person. So when we are in the spiritual track, we have to be more careful, because we can't be changing the world. That Lord will take care. When we interact, we make him understand, and then we move in our own way, which is the right path. If he accepts, it's fine, but we accept it and make him understand, then move. Not to have any conflict. That's what Swamiji is highlighting, which Duryodhana lacked. It could have very easily understood, but then he lacked these qualities because of anger, because he didn't like the qualities of Arjuna. He was jealous because he was more intelligent, had more knowledge. If a person is more intelligent and knowledge, we should be very happy and learn from that other person. That's what Swamiji is highlighting. We should not be jealous or envious about. So we should appreciate that person. Then only we are a spiritual seeker. We try to learn from that person. That's how the society we grow materially and spiritually. That's why to accommodate every individual is very important. So as we have lack of time, we have to have our own thoughts and feelings under control and move with that satsangam. That's why it's told, because we can't accommodate everybody. So always we have to move in that satsangam, and automatically Lord will see to it that situation also is conducive. That we ourselves can see when we are in satsangam, because Lord will take care of other individuals. We need not to be concerned, because as we say in the Shastras, 3 fingers are already pointed towards us. So we have no right to point a finger to any other person. That Lord will take care. So that is very important. Many a times what happens, we forget our minus points. Most of the time our mind is that we have to be in the spiritual line. We have to totally transform ourselves. Others, God will take care. We have to be a role model to every individual, to every family, be in the family, be in the society, be in the world or the nation. We have to set an example being in the satsangam. So look, every individual is a satsangam. Naturally, the whole sangam, 1,000, 2,000 people automatically change. That Lord will see to it. That's why he is referring that the value of Shanti is built on an understanding of human nature and relationships. When there are things that one strongly dislikes in another person, one needs to know how to accommodate that person. So that is very important. Happily accommodate. Initially we might find it difficult, but after some time we can see the transformation in the other person. He will realize that is a fact. Being the spiritual line, we can see that. Swamiji gives a beautiful example. Everyone has a capacity to accommodate to some extent. With reference to certain things, everyone has a lot of accommodation. If one bites one's tongue by accident, for example, one does not knock out one's teeth in anger. While accommodating the teeth that bit the tongue, at the same time one is emphatic towards the tongue that is hurting. A similar empathy needs to be extended to others whose actions require accommodation. Beautiful example, which is very difficult, but then being in the spiritual line, being in the satsangam, it can be easily win over. the situation. So, what Swamiji is highlighting is no one should be disappointed by the behavior of others, but only be surprised and ready to accommodate them, because every person will be different. That is the Srishti, that is the universal law. So, that is an understanding. That's how we grow. So, Swamiji is telling accommodate everybody. It is generally easier to accommodate people when one has minimum expectations about them. Most people can tolerate undesirable behavior from an uneducated person or an innocent child because such behavior is attributed to ignorance or error. So Swamiji is telling more often than not, the undesirable behavior of others is also born of a lack of understanding. Because of lack of understanding, they behave that act. So when we are the spiritual path, we have understood. So when we accommodate and set an example, automatically the situation changes. That's what the highlighting factor. Accommodation in this case does not mean resigning oneself to the limitations of others, but rather first accepting others as they are before attempting to educate them. That is very, very important. That doesn't mean that we are coward, or it's not that. We set an example how to behave, what is the attitude. Automatically the years changes, years pass by, we can see a tremendous change in every person. Another example Swamiji gives, to be objective about the behavior of a person is not easy. Very objective outlook, because we don't side anybody. Have a strike a balance. That is very, very important. When automatically, like how in the court, they don't support, they strike a balance. Same way, our mind should always not support anybody. Detached way, we strike a balance and be objective in every situation, every action of ours. We can see the change. One must learn to look at the reason behind the behavior. When a patient goes to the doctor with symptoms, the doctor does not get angry with the patient for complaining, but attempts to find the cause of the problem. So, Swamiji is telling, learning to look at the cause behind a person's behavior helps one to accommodate people and situations that may not conform to one's likes and dislikes. So, behavior is a product of one's past and present environment, thinking, values, judgments, errors, misunderstandings, and other known and unknown factors. So, given similar circumstances, it's likely that one might find oneself behaving in the same manner as the one whose behavior one finds unacceptable. So, initially, what Swamiji is highlighting is, initially it is very difficult, but as we are in the spiritual path, automatically we accept every situation and we see a tremendous change. Such an attitude of accommodation needs to be developed not only towards the behavior of others, but also towards their way of thinking. So thoughts and feelings of every person changes. So to accommodate every person's thought and feeling and accept as their own. Suppose that person has a problem, we think as our own. Totally our attitude changes. That way, he gives various examples. I'll continue in this next session. Hari Om. Radhe Krishna. Before entering into the 8th verse of Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna emphasizes few more points which are very important for a spiritual seeker to understand the whole Bhagavad Gita. What is the important points? He is emphasizing on delusion. The word moha meaning delusion derives from the Sanskrit root moh, which means to be confused. So what Lord Krishna wants to highlight to Arjuna and what Swamiji is emphasizing is, for a normal human being, we have to understand the limited I, how it works, and how to understand the unlimited, infinite grace of the Ishvara. So, what Swamiji is emphasizing is the whole creation is in the Sankalpam of Ishvara, it's going on. Let it be individual, how it works. because of limited I, every individual thinks with that I that he is doing and he is achieving. There's no doubt that is there, Swamiji is telling, but everything moves and it's programmed according to Ishvara's Sankalpa and our own karma. Everything is placed because our grahas are placed according to our past karma, and the free will how we use that helps us to grow. How we use our free will properly in this human birth, how it helps us to grow higher. That's what is very important. The thoughts, the emotions, the physical body, the senses, how each individual uses it accordingly, it works. That's what Swamiji is highlighting and what Lord Krishna is telling to Arjuna also. In the Bhagavad Gita, in second chapter, when Arjuna was totally confused about his duty as a warrior, Lord Krishna's guidance, very highlighting point, Arjuna's conflict was between his duty as a prince to uphold dharma by killing the wrongdoers and his feelings for those he had to kill, his close family and friends. Lord Krishna dispels the delusion centering on Arjuna's family ties by teaching him the truth regarding the relative nature of relationships. What he is telling, this is only relative. So every action, every thought has to be according to dharma. That's what he's emphasizing. That's a very important point. Objectively, we have to analyze. So that's the objectivity is very important. That's what the highlighting factor in Bhagavad Gita. Because what is going to come with every individual is only dharma. So we can't support, let it be our own family members, we can't support an adharma. Try to explain to them and stick to dharma. That's what Lord Krishna is telling Arjuna, which is very, very important in Bhagavad Gita. Lord Krishna explains how ignorance about the essential nature of the self results in a sense of insecurity and confusion in the way one relates to others. So many a times the objectivity is lost. That's what is like how Arjuna was confused. Lord Krishna's teachings and ultimately he tells Arjuna that he should not be disturbed by his duties. With understanding, we are not doing anything wrong. So we should stick to dharma, not to adharma. That's what he's emphasizing to Arjuna. The mamakara, my notion, is moha. That is, it implies a connection between oneself and the object based on a sense of ownership. Because of attachment, Arjuna felt. That's what Krishna is trying to look at in a dispassionate way, detached way. Because that action is more important. That's what he's trying to explain to Arjuna. One may relate to an object as an observer, such as looking at a flower or a scene and admiring its beauty. With mamakara, however, this relationship changes to the attitude that is my flower, my house. So everything is limited. That's what he is emphasizing. If you broaden our outlook, widen our vision, the total perception changes. That's what he is highlighting. The thought, the emotions, that is very important. The emotion, thoughts, how we use our intellect in an objective way in every action. That is very, very important in everyday daily life. So that's how we grow spiritually and understand the concept. Otherwise, mechanically hearing it won't work. In our life, what is my minus point, how to overcome that, how to reach like that. Every individual, Swamiji is telling, has to contemplate. Lord Krishna describes how one's sense of ownership is based on false perception. See, everything is a perception. So attitude, if we change, the whole perception changes. So every action with the awareness if we do, with the calmness, so our conscience will automatically guides us. That's what Swamiji is emphasizing. In order to truly own something, one must have its sole owner. So everything in this creation is goes according to the Sankalpa of the Lord, and we are just the doers, and we are just the instrument in the hands of the Lord. That's what Swamiji is emphasizing. So, no individual can claim sole ownership of anything in this creation. See, everything is temporary. That's what Swamiji is emphasizing. Relating to possessions with a sense of ownership invites a sense of limitation and insecurity. So, that understanding what one has is always insignificant compared to what one does not have, resulting in a feeling of smallness. That's why we feel we are limited. Actually, we are unlimited. Brahma Tattvam Brahman, we are that Ishvara. That Jivatvam changes to the attitude, makes us realize that we are not small. We are that unlimited Brahman, Ishvara. That's what Swamiji is emphasizing. The more intense the sense of ownership and mindness, that is, this is mine, so this is my house, that selfish approach, if we change it to broader vision, the concept itself makes us feel very proud. The more an individual is aware of what he has and what he does not have, similarly relating to people with a sense of ownership only invites conflict. So, if you have a broader vision and understanding, everything in this world we try to enjoy, and there is no feeling of smallness or limited. Every individual has the capacity, every individual is a potential human being. So he is trying to explain to Arjuna. So you have to broaden your vision, then the whole concept will be very clear. So Swamiji is emphasizing overcoming a sense of ownership and possessiveness requires an understanding of one's own limitations and an appreciation of the Lord in one's life. So if once we understand that God is behind us and doing everything, then the whole concept changes. That's what everything works with Ishvara Sankalpa. That's what he's telling. One is born into the world with all the resources and faculties for survival, including the powers of to know, to desire, and to act. Thus, appreciating the grace of the Lord in one's own life, one sees the falsehood of one's sense of control and ownership. That's what that Swamiji is saying, that once we understand that every sense, every thought is Lord is guiding us, and with that free will we do it properly. Everything in this world, every action, we can see the grace of the Lord, and any problem also gets solved very easily by His grace. So with the prayerful attitude, we do every action with the bhakti, the total surrender to three things Swamiji is emphasizing: self-confidence on your own self, and on the Guru, total surrender, and total surrender to Ishvara, who has created the whole universe, and seeing one's soul self as a just at the instrument of God, and doing with all humility every service, with all humbleness. The total attitude changes, that which Duryodhana did not have. That's what Lord Krishna says to Arjuna. That's why he could not win, and Lord Krishna was not with him, because only dharma. So dharma is very important. He is emphasizing to Arjuna. Same way he is emphasizing on pride. The Sanskrit word mada means pride. So the attitude of mada is described. Mada is an attitude of arrogance with regard to one's accomplishments. So that pride, accomplishment also is Ishvara's grace. If you have accomplished something in life, that is also because of His grace. We have used that action very properly, so that automatically the grace comes. That's why he's emphasizing. There is no harm in setting goals for oneself, reaching them, and patting oneself on the back for the effort made and results achieved. However, in the accomplishment of any goal, many factors are involved. That's what Swamiji is telling. So many hands are there to accomplish one thing. So with everyone's hand, when we are able to achieve something, the very capacity to do, the laws and materials involved, the contribution of people, seen and unseen, and other factors known and unknown, all needs to operate. So everyone's hand is there if you want to achieve something in life. So that gratitude to every human being, that gratitude to everybody, that attitude we should have. Like for example, any small accomplishment we do in our life requires our effort, grace of the Lord, and contribution in society who have helped us. That kritagnyata, that gratitude we should have. That's what then only we'll understand, we'll get away from pride. So we are just a drop in an ocean. That's what Swamiji is emphasizing. So Swamiji is telling one can overcome this enemy by proper understanding of one's strengths, weaknesses, accomplishments and failures, and an objective attitude towards them. One sees oneself as a part of a wider scheme and recognizes the part played by so many other factors in one's achievement. So with that broader vision that anything one individual can't achieve, there are so many hands behind, that attitude is very, very, very much required for a spiritual seeker. With that attitude we do in material world and also in the spiritual will grow and reach the ultimate. That's what he emphasized. Lord Krishna told Arjuna also. Further we'll continue the next session. Hari Om, Radhe Krishna, Radhe Krishna. At the outset, I would like to wish you all a very happy and prosperous Shubhakrit Varsham this year. The name is Shubhakrit, auspicious. So we pray, Lord, for good health, success and all prosperity in the years to come. At the lotus feet of the Lord, our sincere prayers to solve all our problems and progress in our life successfully. So being New Year, I would like to emphasize what Lord Krishna tells to Arjuna, the important point about devotion. Being New Year, let us see what Lord Krishna advises Arjuna, tells what is devotion, how important is devotion. The Sanskrit word bhakti means devotion. It is derived from the verbal root bhaj, meaning to serve. Bhakti is an act of service done wholeheartedly and without self-interest for a person who reveres. Lord says there are different types of bhakti. Depending on the person, one serves Matra Bhakti, service to one's mother, Pitru Bhakti, service to one's father, Acharya Bhakti, service to one's teacher, Raja Bhakti, service to the king, Deva Bhakti, service to the deities, and Ishvara Bhakti, service to the Lord. The term Bhakti generally refers to one's devotion to the Lord, as in Viveka Chudamani, verse 31, Adi Shankara defines devotion as Swaswarupa Anusandhanam, contemplation upon the essential nature of the self. Thus, the word bhakti, in the ultimate sense, reveals the identity of oneself with the Lord. As we are all aware of 4 types of devotion: Sravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dhasyam, Sakhyam, and Atmanivedanam. Other than that, Lord Krishna talks about types of devotees. A devotee may express devotion in one or many ways depending upon his disposition. In the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna describes 4 types of devotees. Chaturvidha bhajante mam jana sukritanojuna artho jignasurartharthi jnani cha bharatarishabha. Chaturvidah, 4 types. Bhajante, worship. Mam, me. Jnana, people. Sukritah, virtuous. Arjuna, O Arjuna. Artha, one who is distressed. Jignasu, seeker of knowledge. Artharthi, seeker of wealth, Jnani, wise person, Cha, and Bharatarishabha, O one who is great among the lineage of Bharata. O Arjuna, the great among the descendants of Bharata, four types of virtuous people worship me, the Lord. That is, Lord Krishna is telling, worship me. The one who is distressed, the seeker of knowledge, the seeker of wealth, and the wise person. An artha is one type of devotee who worships and remembers the Lord during times of distress. When such a person is helpless and finds no means of dealing with a painful or difficult situation, he or she turns to the Lord. Such a person is considered a devotee as he thinks of the Lord and takes refuge in him. Draupadi sought refuge in the Lord when the Kauravas attempted to disrobe her in the presence of the Pandavas, the royal family. A jignasu is another type of devotee who has a desire for self-knowledge. This person has only one goal in life, which is total freedom from limitations. He has discerned that the means to this freedom lies in the discovery of one's identity with the Lord. He does not use the Lord to gain limited ends. So, Jigyasu is the one who wants to know the ultimate truth, the infinite. That person is called Jigyasu. His prayers and devotions are meant only to fulfill the goal of gaining self-knowledge. The Katha Upanishad presents young Nachiketas as a seeker of self-knowledge. When Lord Yama tempts Nachiketas with worldly and heavenly pleasures, Nachiketas points out their limitations and requests that Lord Yama teach him self-knowledge. So, the self-knowledge is the understanding of the scriptures and to know the ultimate truth. A third type of devotee is an artharthi, a person whose devotion is governed by a desire to achieve various ends such as wealth, power, name, and possessions. Such a person recognizes the element of chance in any undertaking and asks for the grace of the Lord in the fulfillment of various desires. Like example, Ravana was a great devotee of Lord Shiva. He sought to be the most powerful in the three worlds by pleasing the Lord through penance. The Jnani is the fourth type of devotee. He is a wise person who has gained the knowledge of the identity between himself and the Lord, who has understood the whole truth. His devotion is merely an expression of his appreciation of the presence of the Lord in every being. See everything in me. He has understood the truth. This is the highest form of devotion and the culmination of all human pursuits. Total understanding, the fourth devotee is. In praising the Jnani, Lord Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Jnani tu atmanaiva me matman. Jnani tu atmaneva me matma. I regard the wise person as my very self. So he considers a jnani as not separate from himself. In the Ramayana, King Janaka was considered to be a wise person. His decisions as a king was seen as spontaneous expression of his wisdom. Bhakti is described in Ardha Bhakti Sutra as asmin parama prema rupa, an ardent love with reverence for the Lord. Prema means love for someone or something. Parama prema is an ardent love combined with reverence. Deep bhakti. Bhakti involves both love and reverence. One can love anything in the world, but however, this is not bhakti. In bhakti, the object of love is also revered. Generally, one does not say that one loves the Lord, but that one is devoted to the Lord. Just as the wave never really exists apart from the ocean, an individual, though seemingly distinct, never exists apart from the Lord. We can't separate Lord and the individual. That is the highlighting factor. It is very difficult, if not impossible, to love and revere something that is unknown. It is necessary to understand, Lord Krishna as the cause of the says that the Lord as the cause of the entire creation, including oneself. Very important, very highlighting point Swamiji is emphasizing. A wise person appreciates the Lord not only as the cause but as non separate from himself. Just as a wave is born of the ocean, is sustained by it, and resolves back into it, so also an individual is born of the Lord, sustained by the Lord, and resolves back into the Lord. Very important point Swamiji is highlighting. Just as the wave never really exists apart from the ocean, an individual, though seemingly distinct, as I said earlier, never exists apart from the Lord. It is in such an understanding that Parama Prema Rupa Bhakti finds its fulfillment. So, that is the highlighting factor Lord Krishna says to Arjuna. The important point about devotion in the new year. Let us all follow that fourth point of devotion to ultimately know the ultimate truth. Hari Om, Radhe Krishna. We'll continue in the next session. Hari Om, Radhe Krishna. Coming to the 8th verse of the first chapter of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Bhavan Bhishmascha Karnascha Kripascha Samitinjayah Ashwathama Vikarnascha Saumadattirjayadhritaha. Bhavan, your honor, Bhishmaha, Bhishma, Cha, and Karnaha, Karna, Cha, and Kripaha, Kripa, Cha, and Samitinjayah, one who is always victorious, Ashwathama, Ashwathama, Vikarnaha, Vikarna, Cha, and Saumadattihi, Saumadatti, Jayadritaha, Jayadrita. Your honor, Bhishma, Karna, and Kripa, always victorious in war, Ashwathama, Vikarna, Saumadatti, and Jayadrita. Instead of calling him by name, Duryodhana addressed Dronacharya as Bhavan, meaning you, sir, because Drona's dearest disciples were on the other side. Duryodhana was afraid that his heart would not be in the fight. He was therefore always trying to win Drona over. Later in the battle, he began taunting Dronacharya, saying that the reason he was not fighting his best was because his heart was with the Pandavas. When Duryodhana was losing and Bhishma was on his deathbed, Drona became Duryodhana's commander-in-chief. He became so inflamed by Duryodhana's taunts that he was determined to take Yudhishthira dead or alive. In this verse, Duryodhana acknowledged Drona's importance by using the term Bhavan. Only then did he point out that the invisible Bhishma, the oldest in the family and the strongest, there was no one equal to Bhishmacharya at that time. When he fought, no one could stand against him. Even Krishna, who had promised not to fight, became so impressed with Bhishmacharya's strength that he actually took up his chakra. Only then did he remember what he had said. Lord Krishna remembered that he should not use his chakra. The others described in this verse are Karna, Duryodhana's answer for Arjuna, and Kripa, one of their uncles, presented here as one who was always victorious in any conflict and who could defeat an army single-handedly. Duryodhana also remembered to mention Drona's son Ashwathama along with his own brother Vikarna, who was the youngest and the same age as Ashwathama. Jayadratha, a very important person who caused the death of Arjuna's son Abhimanyu, and Saumadatti were also presented to Drona by Duryodhana. Having mentioned these people by name, Duryodhana then pointed out that there were many other warriors who had come to join him on the battlefield. So the highlighting point is there was all minus points in Duryodhana, as Lord Krishna says to Arjuna, and what Swamiji refers to every jiva, that we have to win over our mind, win over our intellect, mainly win over our senses, which are very, very important. Our ears, nose, throat, all the sense organs we have to withdraw. The importance of this sloka is understand and withdraw, and with the mind and with the intellect use the discrimination properly, which Lord Krishna told Arjuna, which Duryodhana very much lacked in his every action. So the important point is, with determination and with proper discrimination, we have to understand when we do any action. That is the highlighting point in this verse. Coming to the 9th verse, अन्ये च बहवः शूराः मदर्थे त्यक्तजीविताः नानाशस्त्रप्रहरणाः सर्वे युद्धविशारदाः. Madartha, for my sake, Tekta Jivitaha, who has given up their lives, Nana Shastra Praharanaha, having many kinds of weapons, Sarve, all, Yuddha Visharadaha, experts in warfare, Anye, other, Cha, and Bahavaha, many, Suraha, warriors, and many other warriors, all experts in warfare, armed with many kinds of weapons, who had given up their lives for my sake. So Duryodhana's words, other warriors who have given up their lives for my sake, Anye cha bahava shuraha madarte tekta jivitaha, can be taken here as a divine omen of what was to come. Had they given up their lives as he had said, he would have had a dead army on his hands. He meant that they were ready to give up their lives, but what he said was an example of Daiva, certain words that indicate what is to come. Such words are not deliberately spoken. The speaker means one thing, but the words themselves mean something else. So in fact, these warriors had already given up their lives for Duryodhana's sake. They were all going to die. So here it came out in Duryodhana's speech. His defeat was indicated by his own words. So what Swamiji is highlighting is, our every word is important when we speak. So that's what we think, what we do, what we speak. Thought, word and deed is very, very important in one's life. That's why the highlighting factor. Again, Duryodhana lacked in everything. So he had to lose the battle. So always Krishna was guiding Arjuna on so many other factors also. So Swamiji is highlighting, they were people who had a variety of weapons with them. Weapons can be either praharanas, those that can be aimed and released like an arrow, or shastras, weapons that are held in one's hand like a sword. Not only did these people come with all of these weapons, but they were experts in using them. They had a thorough knowledge of weaponry and warfare, some having expertise in more than one particular martial art. The 10th verse of the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Aparyaptam tadasmakam bhalam bhishmabhirakshitam paryaptam tvidame tesham bhalam bhimabhirakshitam. Bhishmabhirakshitam, well protected by Bhishma. Tat, that, asmakam, our, palam, strength, aparyaptam, not overwhelmed. Bhishmabhirakshitam, even though protected by Bhishma. Tesham, of these people in front of us, idam, this, balam, strength. Tu, whereas, paryaptam, to be overwhelmed. The strength of our army being greater, well protected by Bhishmacharya, cannot be overwhelmed, whereas the strength of these people in front of us, their battalions being fewer in number, even though protected by Bhishmacharya, can be overwhelmed. Here Duryodhana pointed out to Dronacharya that his army could not be overwhelmed by the Pandavas because it was well protected by Bhishmacharya. Also, it consisted of 11 divisions, whereas the Pandavas had only 7 divisions. He therefore considered his army in no danger, not only because it had more divisions but because it had such great leaders. Even though the mighty Bhishma would protect the Pandavas, Duryodhana was sure that his army could easily overwhelm them and that he would win the war. There is another meaning sometimes given for this verse that does not hold. In this version, Duryodhana told Dronacharya that his strength of his army was not adequate, but at least it was protected by Bhishmacharya, whereas the Pandavas' army was adequate but was protected only by Bhishma. This interpretation is based on Duryodhana's jealousy towards Bhishmacharya. It's all protected by this Bhishmacharya, and he will surely blow it. Protected by the great Bhishmacharya, we shall therefore win. This meaning is not correct. So what Swamiji is highlighting is because of, as Duryodhana was jealous, he had that vision, wrong vision. Since Duryodhana had 11 divisions, he naturally thought that his army could not be overwhelmed by the 7 divisions of his opponents. Given the number involved, he concluded that there was no way that the Pandavas could surround them. It would be a walkover. The contention surrounding these two interpretations centers on the meaning given to the words aparyaptam and paryaptam as indicated in the above discussion. This then was Duryodhana's thinking. His words were meant merely to generate some enthusiasm in Dronacharya so that Duryodhana would gain Drona's wholehearted support in this battle. In the next verse, Bhishma's importance to the outcome of the war was mentioned to Drona by Duryodhana. Anyeshu cha sarveshu yatha bhagamavastitaha. Ayaneshu cha sarveshu yatha bhagamavastitaha bhishmamevabhirakshantu bhavanthas sarva eva hi. The 11th verse of the Bhagavad Gita. Ayaneshu cha sarveshu yatha bhagamavastitaha bhishmamevabhirakshantu bhavanthas sarva eva hi. Sarveshu in all, cha and ayaneshu division of the army. Etat bhagam in your respective positions. Avastitaha stationed. Bhavantha sarve all of you. Evahi indeed. Bhishmacharya eva only. Abhirakshantu may protect. So may all of you being stationed in your respective positions protect Bhishma indeed. Bhishmacharya was not just a commander-chief appointed according to seniority. Although he was the oldest person in Duryodhana's ranks, he was the one who really counted in this battle. As we know, Bhishmacharya was not an ordinary person. Therefore, Duryodhana said that they must all protect Bhishmacharya. If Bhishmacharya were protected, then the army would be protected and victory would be certain. I don't want Bhishmacharya to get hurt in any way, Duryodhana mentioned. In fact, Duryodhana had organized the entire army into formations that would ensure the protection of his commander-in-chief. There was no way for the Pandavas to penetrate his ranks and get at Bhishma, he thought. Confirming his plans, he asked Dronacharya to make sure that everyone remained in their assigned places so that Bhishmacharya would be well protected. As long as Bhishmacharya was there, they were safe. That was Duryodhana's thinking. We'll conclude with this. We'll continue the next session. Hari Om, Radhe Krishna.
Hari Om, Radhe Krishna. We covered till the 11th verse of the first chapter of Srimad Bhagavad Gita, where Swamiji tries to explain on the values which are very, very important, which Duryodhana lacked very much, which Arjuna had those values, and also Krishna guided him, which helped him a lot. Same way, what Swamiji is emphasizing is every jiva, every individual should know the values of life, which is which is very, very important for a human life. That is emphasized in this. Swamiji is trying to explain which every jiva has to follow. That is the explanation. What Swamiji is giving is, what Swamiji is highlighting to all individuals is the need for values. Since the core message of mythology is the role of values in human life. The whole human life is determined on values, that is Satya and Dharma. What is Swamiji is emphasizing? It's important to know the meaning of values. Value is a term that refers to the quality of an object or a situation which makes it worthwhile or desirable. Values that involve common sense ethics are called ethical values. In Sanskrit, ethical values are known as dharma. Dharma then is not just to assimilate an ethical value in one's life. One needs to appreciate the value of that value. So that value of that value, that is whatever we are following, we have to have value for that particular value and assimilate and understand. That is what Swamiji is highlighting. Like for example, he gives, Rama may have been a dharmic person, but if one does not see the value of dharma in one's life, so why we are referring to Rama, Krishna and other avatars is, you have to take that and follow that, is which is very important, not just hearing. So every action, that's what Swamiji is emphasizing. So what he is telling is, Rama may have been a dharmic person, but if one does not see the value of dharma in one's life, one cannot be inspired by Rama or Krishna. That's what he is emphasizing. A child's character develops from the child's understanding of the meaning of ethical values. From the childhood, it has to start. That's what Swamiji is highlighting. An introduction to ethical values through the teachings of the Ramayana, Puranas, all Bhagavad Gita, everything is meant to inspire and bring clarity to every individual. Because why Swamiji is emphasizing so much is, which is very important, not a casual approach. That's what, to climb the spiritual ladder, every action from morning till night, we have to analyze every individual. So that's why he's giving importance to every value. Ethical values such as compassion, non-injury and truthfulness are esteemed in every culture and in every walk of life. A child has as much value for non-injury as an adult. No one wishes to be lied, not even the one who lies. Common sense, which all human beings possess, forms the basis for an acceptable human behavior in any society. Hence, Swamiji is telling that I do not do to others what I do not want others to do to me, in a commonly shared understanding among people. So what he is emphasizing is, every problem, everything what we do for others and what we expect from others, that understanding has to be very clear. We should not injure others, other person injures also, we should analyze what was the reason for it, and not to go against and react, but make the person understand. That's why the understanding is very important. That's why a spiritual person have to be a total role model to the society and change. Like that, every individual tries to follow the satsang forms, then the society improves. That's why he is emphasizing in every small aspect. Universal values are different from absolute values, Swamiji is emphasizing. Absolute values would have to be upheld at all times, in all situations, without exception. Such values would be impossible to cherish. In fact, the belief that absolute values even exist causes great conflict and confusion in society. Because absolute values are ideals that can never be attained, it is important that values be taught in their relative universal nature. Being relative in nature, values are subject to interpretation according to context and must be following using discrimination. Clarity regarding truth and the moral orders form the basis for judging a right action. That's why the scriptures helps us to follow. That's why it's laid down what dharma is. So we can't argue in this. We follow the Guru, we follow what is told in the scriptures. With that belief, with that bhakti, we see the difference. The epics provide an excellent framework for carefully evaluating and imbibing what is responsible living. The texts present conflicts dealing with values, difficult decisions, and the need to come to term with life without sacrificing dharma. When Bhishmacharya is torn over whether to fight for the Kauravas or the Pandavas, or when in Panchavati Lakshmana stands indecisive over whether to follow Rama's order not to leave Sita alone, or to listen to Sita and leave her while he searches for Rama. One seizes the reasons for their decisions. Swamiji is highlighting this point so that when a situation comes in life, what is dharma is important. Not get attached to a person or a situation. What is told in the scriptures, that is very important. That is the judgment what Swamiji is analyzing. That's why he told Arjuna, don't see a teacher or a guru or a father or mother. What is dharma you follow, which is very, very important, which is highlighted in Bhagavad Gita. In the process, one discovers what integrity is in the life of a dharmic person, and thus a value is assimilated. That's why it's very important. Because of attachment, we give up so many values which won't work, Swamiji is telling, because karma follows. Suppose a wrong decision, we support a son or a father, anybody for that matter, which is wrong. We can make them understand and judge. That should be our truthful nature. Swamiji is emphasizing neither can a person live without relationships, and in relating, values become inevitable. That's why in relationship, values are very important. In fact, one's code of ethics alone draws one into relationships. So we have to be a role model being in the spiritual line. That's why Swamiji is highlighting every time. Swamiji is telling, only when I think that another person is kind, good, or caring towards me, do I risk investing in a friendship with the individual. For a human being endowed with the faculty of choice, values are as indispensable as breathing. If values are such an integral part of a human life, why do they become a source of conflict? Swamiji is highlighting. If I follow the value structure that I expect others to follow, my values will naturally become assimilated and a source of inspiration and strength. But if because of conflicting needs, I fall short in living up to my value structure while still demanding absolute ethical behavior from others, I will experience conflicts and frustrations with myself and with others around me. So Swamiji is highlighting that we need not be correcting others at all. We set an example and follow being in the satsang. Automatically the individual changes. The person will change with the prayer, with that attitude. If you show love and make him understand, no doubt, absolutely no doubt, that that person will change by God's grace. That faith we should have. Many a times we lose the calmness. That's what Swami is again and again highlighting. Awareness and calmness. We should have tolerate and change the person. He will change. That is the highlighting factor. Swamiji is again highlighting value conflicts arise because of two opposed values. two opposite values that initially carry equal weight in my understanding can cause a conflict with regard to action. Many times it happens. For example, when a lie could help me obtain $1,000, I may see the value for telling the truth as obstructing my value for money. After consideration, I will act upon the value which is more valuable to me. So he is giving various examples, because the desires we might get attracted to something, but what is value? What is it really worth to me? That analysis in every action I have to do, not be carried away. So another example is telling a half assimilated value. For example, a half assimilated value for telling the truth creates self-doubt and conflict over one's incapacity to live up to that value. So this conflict can be resolved only by understanding the relative nature of values and how to interpret them in a given situation. So many a times we give up value because of attachment, which is very wrong. That's what, because your karma is getting added and that person's karma also is getting added simultaneously because of every action, cause and effect. That's why we have to be very careful, and that's why he's telling to Arjuna, he made him understand that Bhagavad Gita is so important. Every action Lord Krishna is explaining to Arjuna. So every jiva, so Lord Krishna is telling to every jiva how to be in his life to attain the ultimate. An internal knower-doer split. Again, though no one knows what is right, but the doer does differently. For example, when one frequently lies, one creates a moral split inside and one is not able to enjoy one's comforts or accomplishments. The more one lives with such conflicting behavior, the more one becomes morally split and incapable of trust and integrity. So what is the highlighting factor is we have to be truthful, dharmic, satyam and dharmam, which is very, very important for any person, for that matter, for a human being. Otherwise, because that free will and the discrimination only a human being has. If he is not following, he is equal to animal, Swamiji is referring, because he is adding to his karmas. So that's why we are in the satsang, we are in the always studying the scriptures, taking the blessings of the Lord and the Guru. That's what the highlighting factor about the values. We'll continue in the next session. Radhe Krishna. Radhe Krishna. Continuing with the 11th verse of Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Swamiji is little more highlighting on the values which are very important to be followed, which is told in the Bhagavad Gita and which is also covered in various scriptures, which Swamiji wants to highlight so that every individual understands the whole concept properly. Like Swamiji is referring, physical growth is common to all forms of life, plants, animals and human beings alike. In addition to physical growth, the human being is blessed with the capacity for emotional growth and maturity, which is very, very important. At maturity, the values can be followed properly if you win over emotional maturity, which Swamiji is highlighting. Maturity is a measure of one's self-awareness and self-identity which guides one's thinking and interactions in the world. So with maturity, we try to analyze the self-awareness of every action and then follow the values, which is the highlighting factor. Physical growth naturally takes place with the passage of time. To mature physically, one needs only survive and stay healthy. The same, however, cannot be said for emotional growth. One's emotional maturity is influenced by many factors, including an understanding of values, of attitude, and of the society in which one lives. The faculty of intellect distinguishes a human being from other living beings and contributes to his emotional growth. Endowed with common sense, a human being is able to appreciate right and wrong without any education whatsoever. I need not be taught that I should not be hurt, that I should not be robbed, and so on. These are values that are commonly sensed by everyone and thus govern all human interactions. So, no teaching is required. A human being has that conscience and he works according to conscience. No education is required for it, because already Lord has given that faculty of discrimination. The creator of the universe, Ishvara, in the form of law and order of the universe, has given the common sense based Samanya Dharma, universal values to human beings. If the physical body is considered a Dharma Kshetra, then Kurukshetra is one's own mind, and in which there are conflicts between Dharma and Adharma. That is, which is told in the Bhagavad Gita, so which is very important for every individual. What is Dharma and what is Adharma to be followed? What is to be done and not to be done? What is proper and not proper? One already knows Dharma and Adharma in the sense one has to one has a certain sense about them. No one can plead ignorance of what is right and wrong. This knowledge is universal. So he is highlighting the main important factors. So Swamiji has highlighted in so many factors universal values versus individual likes and dislikes. So how to follow the individual likes and dislikes has to be according to the Shastras, not work according to our own mind. So all that guidance Swamiji is highlighting. Universal values, again cultural values, like personal values of universal nature. There are so many factors. Personal values of universal nature are values that one is endowed with naturally, like the value for money, power, or pleasures. They are not cultivated like the personal likes and dislikes. So, how to use that likes and dislikes? We have so many areas, but how to use with proper guidance, that is more important. Um, there are many values involved in a moral order, like non-injury, speaking the truth, compassion, sharing, humility, the absence of the absence of dissipation, the absence of jealousy, hatred, and so on, all of which are connected to each other. With reference to the behavior of others, we are very clear. What we want is a do, and what we don't want is a don't. So we have to be very clear in our understanding. That's what Swamiji is highlighting. Thus, this particular knowledge is with all of us and is gathered by common sense, meaning that no education is necessary to know what is right and wrong. However, problems arise because of our priorities, which is why we settle for compromises. So, Swamiji is telling that these values we should not compromise at all at any cost. So that is the highlighting factor. Like Swamiji is highlighting universal values of universal nature. Values such as truthfulness, non-hurting, love, and compassion are universal values and are universal in nature. One's choices based on personal preferences do not concern another. However, choices with reference to personal values, such as value for money, have to be in keeping with the universal values as it affects the interest of others. So, universal values are not absolute but relative in nature. An action considered to be not in keeping with one value may still be considered as right in another situation. For example, hurting another person is against the universal value of non injury. But when a surgeon cuts a patient with a knife to save his life, his action is not looked upon as wrong. Being relative, values are to be interpreted according to each situation. The rules and codes of conduct of each society provides guidance in interpreting values in various situations. However, one should not go against universal values while pursuing individual or cultural values. Like Swamiji is highlighting, as long as one's pursuit of personal values such as money, comfort to the universal values, one is living a life of dharma. Whereas if one's pursuit, whether for money, power, or pleasure, comes in conflict with the universal values, then there is adharma. While gaining money, power, position, or pleasure, if one goes against the universal values, what one loses is not understood. Therefore, one's understanding of the laws incurred in the choice of means is what is meant by inner maturity. So, there should not be any compromise in the values. That is the maturity, inner maturity we should have. That is the highlighting factor. One more highlighting factor Swamiji is telling, the value of values. Like if one can see the immensity of the loss with reference to the compromise made in order to gain such things as money and power, one is a matured person. One will not go for the bargain because one sees it as a bad bargain. One should see that what one loses is more than what one gains, which has nothing to do with the moral authority. What is highlighting is we have to stick to the values. We should not be attracted with the likes, with the situation, like when it comes to money, like in wrong ways. When coming to the position, power, all that in a wrong way, we should not gain that. That's what the highlighting factor is. So, for every action, the values are very important. For a person who has understood and assimilated the value of the universal values, action becomes spontaneous and choiceless. So, continuously when we practice, it becomes spontaneous. Immediately, our intellect highlights. So, it's just a question of practice. That's why, from the very childhood, our parents teach that most religions and cultures recognize and validate living a life in keeping with universal values. So, the sections that follow analyze and explain a number of universal and cultural values is to help one assimilate the value of these values. That is the highlighting factor. One more example Swamiji gives. One needs to understand the objective value of money and its role in one's life. Money is a means for accomplishing various ends, but it can never fulfill one's need for emotional security, nor can it compensate for an underlying sense of inadequacy. Wealth does not provide an individual with a relative degree of comfort and security. A true sense of security, however, is born of an appreciation of inner fullness, not of external wealth. The ultimate end of all human endeavor is to gain total freedom and happiness. The Upanishads point out that this end, called Amritatvam, cannot be gained by actions, progeny, or wealth. Such ends only provide limited fulfillments. The Mahanarayana Upanishad says, न कर्मणा न प्रजया धनेन त्यागे नैके अमृतत्वमानशुः. It's a beautiful verse from Mahanarayana Upanishad, which says immortality cannot be attained by action, progeny, or wealth. Some attain it by tyaga, renunciation. The word tyaga means giving up. It can be taken literally to mean to give up something. Tyaga as a value, however, is to be understood in terms of an attitude, not simply the acting of giving up something. One readily gives up things that are no longer needed, like giving away old clothes or to a charity. This is not tyaga, what Swamiji means. Giving up things out of fear, frustration, or disillusionment also does not constitute tyaga. What he means is tyaga with respect to wealth is an attitude whereby one does not need or seek money for one's inner security. One acknowledges the objective value of money and recognizes its limitation as well. With such an attitude, one can handle money in a matured way and share it with others graciously. That is the highlighting factor. What he means is the ultimate to know the truth, that for that the understanding of maturity is required, that money is not the end, to know the truth. So the value for it has to be properly given and understood, so that the concept is understood properly. That is the highlighting factor which Swamiji is emphasizing. Further, we'll continue in the next session. Radhe Krishna, Radhe Krishna.